Hello, audience, however meager you may be. I hope the world finds you in good spirits. I hope the world finds itself in good spirits. My name is Brian Jennings. This is my channel. It was created to discuss the nature of my relationship with the movie critic, with Quentin Tarantino. But it perpetuates itself for a myriad of reasons. To discuss the nature of reality primarily. These are the questions that interest me. To discuss music and art and philosophy. Esotericism, right? Remote viewing, magic. Right? All of these things interest me. And so I enjoy talking about them. But they've come to define a really ugly, nasty saga in my life. It defines both of our lives. And so I don't really like talking about it anymore. What I'll say is that he canceled the film because of me, and I've said this 1,000 times on this channel. That I wrote him some letters, and he played his mind games. He's a clairvoyant. He likes to play psychic mind games. And when he never replied, I wrote a 7,000-word essay. Just to process my life, because I felt him in my mind, right? And so after I published the essay, I started reviewing movies in protest. I guess like what I'm saying is where I was at is like, oh, I'm gonna keep working at this until he acknowledges me, right? Because this is not a joke to me, right? And then after the third review, Gone with the Wind. He canceled the film. Right? So, he set me up to be an instant movie star per clairvoyance, like with his considerable psychic prowess. And when he stuck his nose up at my letter and turned his back on my letter, right? And it's petty, it's shallow. I acknowledge that. I should have just given it to him, given him the power over my mind. But when he refused my letter, I saw something ugly in it. I saw a tactic of control. I said, oh, he wants to control me. He doesn't care about my writing. He just thinks that I bark like a dog. And he likes dogs. And so I did the same thing. I followed his direction. Turned my back and left. I hated myself for months. It was so petty. It was so stupid. Right? But after I didn't give him what he wanted, right, he entered into a covenant with those closest to him, those around him. I suspect it could all be him. To compel me to madness. To compel me to blow my brains out. Right? And the story is too dense. It's the saga of a novel that I've written. And at the first of the year, when I started remote viewing, because I've always known what he was doing, after just a couple days of going off, I went to fuck off. He said, oh, there's no daughter, there's no, right? And again, it's the subject of the novel. Everything that I've been telling you is bullshit, like no one loves you, ha 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 ha. And so I've been trying to come clean ever since. And so there's two schools here. When you consider my story, you can believe it because it's the truth, because it's what's occurring, or you can believe his lies. And so I've spent since January, right, so 10 months now, right, and I know he's exhausted, and I am too, but I can't stop because I don't want to die, right, it's that simple, right, trying to talk to the press, trying to talk to everyone else in show business, trying to talk to his agents, saying this is what's occurring, right? And what I didn't mention is that I sent him a scene. This is about a scene that I sent him. He wanted to get my scene for free. And this is where it's really ugly and dangerous, right? This is where it's really nasty, elitist, right? Intellectual horseshit, right? Because he was beholden to people, right? He was making the movie when he canceled it. right? That this isn't, like, he doesn't live in a vacuum, right? And so when I didn't give him what he wanted, right, because they were all ready to make the movie with me, right? But he has, right, it's initiation. Initiation by degrees. And he's seeing now it's not that easy, right, as far as dismissing me. Right? But when he told all of them, oh, I'm handling it, right, as far as WME, because I wrote WME as agency, as soon as I blew it, right? Because I was arrogant, I acknowledge that. And I knew that he was using my scene. It's a really fucking badass scene. Right? And so, after I started coming clean, right? He has continued to escalate his tactics. And I suppose I'll spend a couple minutes talking about that now. What is it that is occurring when people say words like remote viewing, clairvoyant? And this is all in my novel, in that first essay on magic. That what is occurring is the adept, right? The practitioner is using their mind, their consciousness, their individual consciousness to tap into the non-locality of consciousness to find someone else, right? And so this manifests in the mind in a myriad of ways, right? We have this beautiful facility. It's called the imagination. And so the real work of the adept is distinguishing between, right, what is imagined and what is actually there. And so, after coming out the other side of, his months of torture of me, and subtly, all to get me to blow my brains out, so he could have my scene for free. Right? He began doing the same thing, right? And so the things that we refer to as psychic or clairvoyant are the same things that people refer to as magic and sorcery in centuries past. They're the same things. They're not similar things. They're the same things. Right? And now, right, in that way, he has descended into sorcery, into black magic evil, to try to use his mind to give me diseases, to destroy my body. And it's very frightening, right? Because no matter what he says to me in the psychic crucible of the mind's eye, that if I descend into those depths, it's nothing. He'll send someone to murder me. He's always known exactly where I am, right? And so I'm torn, 100%, because all I ever did was write letters from the heart. But now I have no choice. I have to talk about it. And I see, right, that he's run my name through the mud all over town, right? He's taken everything that I wrote him per what he wanted and twisted it. Like, these are the things that he's interested in, is cunning and guile. And so I have to talk about it. I have to be prepared for absolute humiliation. And I suppose that I am, because it doesn't matter, right? But that's a conversation for another day. What I'll say is that I'd like to hope that the recent letters that I've been sending, one to Christopher Nolan, or his agent, who probably showed it to him, I don't know, as well as this blanket statement to the press where I told him he could have the scene for free, and I don't think that anyone around him is going to let him do that. I've been telling him that since April. Right? That hopefully, not that it's put the fear in him like he's put it in me, but hopefully it's calmed him down to where, right, like, there's plenty of room in God's house for all of his creatures. Right? I don't want to fight him, right? I don't want to, right? I don't want to have to, and I'll never descend to those depths. It's so ugly and evil. Right, where he poisons my mind, right, with a power that he can always deny. right? Tries to get me high with drugs constantly. Just really ugly, really ugly. I don't understand. When he could just love his wife, he could love his kids. So, if you recall, I'm making a model. Here's an example, right? We're going through this book, Spherical Models, Magnus Weiniger, really famous book, right? And so, this is the table, right? There's a trigonometric, like mathematical way of doing it, right? But this has all the degrees. And so I cast one circle. I'll show you an example. Right? The Star of David divides the circle into 36. I suspect Quentin didn't know that. And here's the other one, there's two of them. Right? And so each of these bands is one of these triangles. Right? And so there's 720 in the total form. So I'll print out like 8 or 10 of these. I'll cut them all out and then I'll fill up a piece of paper. And that's what I'm cutting out right now. So I also have my drawing, which is, it's kind of hard to see because the pencil, I'm constantly erasing, but the paint will just cover all of that. But it's a movie theater, and there's 3 rows of seats. What I'll say is the third row, the farthest row back, it's straighter than maybe I would like, but I suppose that's fine because it's getting closer to the frame, to where the camera is. But it'll be 4 rows, it'll be like a half a row behind that, and then I'll be ready to paint. Oh, well, no, I'm going to draw what's in here. Right? So, and then I'll draw me, right? Reviewing a movie. So, Tribeca was my fault. I can't stress that enough. I'll always say it. But I don't want to kill myself. Like he thinks that the movie's just life and death. I can't imagine, like, right? My point is that there's a palpable darkness in him. And that's where all of the violence in his films comes from. Right? What I'll say is that I went out last night and it was better. And I was doing everything I could to give them their minds back. Say, you don't have to, right? I know we're always going to be close. Right? And I think that they appreciated it. I know that I put them on their heels when I showed them what a savage practitioner I am. And I don't want to fight. I don't want to, right? Like he can go to sleep, he can live his life. He has a beautiful life. He has a fortunate life. Right? And maybe it has something to do with the fact that I wrote Christopher Nolan's agent, since he's the president of the DGA now. And that's the Directors Guild of America. I want us to embrace, call each other father and son. That's what I want. I know that that's a lot, and it will likely never happen. But I know that he doesn't want to, right? The fear is that, like, we're both mentally ill right now, essentially, on a categorical level. Right? And so, right, if I'm dead, and I don't think that would solve the problem, honestly. That he would just fester on me forever. But I live in palpable fear constantly. He constantly keeps me in fear. But last night was better. I spent time with people I don't have any money. He made it to where I can't work because he was so awful to me in my job. And maybe in his mind, he's like, oh, he's lost his mind, so that's good enough. And so these are the two positions, right? That I'm insane and he's evil. Right? And so I can't stop talking about it. Right? Because I'm not insane. There's plenty of people who understand exactly what I'm saying, and I emailed many clairvoyant colleges yesterday. And I'm going to keep talking about it, despite how obnoxious it is, right? I don't want to talk about it, right? But until there's resolution, right? Until months have passed where I don't feel his disgusting psychic pressures upon me, right? I'm going to keep talking about it, right? And so, ultimately, I feel that all of this is just him being a bully because I don't have any money, because I don't have any resources, right? Because I'm a quiet, sort of loner guy. Right? If I had like 10 people, my novel's called Building a Coven, if I had my coven of witches, right? And they were on Quentin all day, every day saying, leave Brian alone, leave Brian alone, leave Brian alone. It would take probably 3 days, 4 days. And he would say, okay, dude, we're good. Right? Because he definitively has no right to go after anyone else. Then he's just evil. Right? Like he can justify it in his way and say, oh, fucking sad hillbilly doesn't want to give me what I want. And I could say something about how that's fucked up. But in any event, that it's not someone's fault that they love me. Right? Just like it's not Daniela's fault that she loves Quentin. As far as this campaign, right? On the other side of it. And we're so close, we're as close as any people can be. But all I can do is talk about it. So, at the fulcrum of life is absolute stillness. Right? Stillness is God. There is nothing else. Right? So when the atheist says there's nothing to pray to, they're right. When Salman Rushdie says that blasphemy is a victimless crime, they're right. But the other side of that argument is that within absolute stillness lies the potential for all of manifested reality. And so, in that way, their lines betray the quality that is misunderstood, which actually is God. And so, inevitably, space, that absolute still fulcrum, is divided, right? I consider them emanations, right, of the Kabbalah, right? The first one, Binah and Chokmah, or Chokmah and Binah, doesn't matter, is the subatomic, subquantum hologram spatial structuring of all of manifested reality, right? The hologram has embedded within it the electric archetype for anything that has been, is, or will be, right? And it is defined, as so far as my understanding is concerned, as an infinite complex nesting of polyhedra. Right? Here's an example. Here's another example, right? All within all, right? All representing some perfect, noble, idealized form of something corrupted into kinetic motion that we measure and experience in the world as matter. And so the divine light of God is diffused within it, right? Within that quantum hologram, infinitely dense, infinitely complex, right? Which is actually the impetus for motion, right? And this is why it's a corruption, it's an emanation. And so, inevitably, the plasticity of the geometric hologram, in particular this form, right, which is the vector equilibrium, is used to collapse space. And the impetus for motion exerts a giving a force of pressure upon the quantum hologram, right, and the specific dihedral, the specific angle or angles with which it imposes its giving, right, will collapse space into a particular arrangement, right? This collapses out of the cube octahedron, the squares collapse into the octahedron, into the tetrahedron, into the triangle, right, which we know is mirrored in the structure of chemical elements for all of the periodic table, right? And so space is collapsing towards this specific structural identity, right, until it has engendered so much electric resistance as it's collapsing. It's all the volume is going towards the center, right? And so as it's doing that, it's grating against itself as friction until inevitably the electric resistance becomes so high that it cannot remain in inert space and erupts into incandescence as matter, right? And so this first light, right, then chemical elements, right, like planetary bodies, atmospheric strata, mineral, vegetable, animal, man, right? And at the highest levels of man is the artist, and at the highest levels of the artist is the medium, right? And so the most powerful clairvoyant mediums, right, which is what I find myself in the middle of, right? He's arguably the strongest clairvoyant in the world. I'm the strongest clairvoyant of the millennial generation, right? That they are behaving like God, that they're exerting a psychic intellectual pressure upon the firmament of space with their intention, with their will, and seeking to restructure it according to their design. So, right, you can never know for certain because you're a part, and a part can never know the whole. But you can be a good part, right? Meditate, uplift your soul to the mystery, right? The mystery traditions are defined in two schools. The first of which is the question, who, what, when, where. You can never know why, right? But the greater mystery is the recognition that what is the only one that matters, right? What is occurring that allows all of life to proliferate and manifest is the expression of God's love upon the universe. That the sun has no concern for what it receives. It gives and gives and gives and gives of itself unconditionally forever. So, like, comment, subscribe, share. Let me know what you think. God bless.